Welcome to the Marriage Can Win show. We are your hosts, Eric and Dr. Sakisha Heilich, and we are your relationship experts.
Now, here at Marriage Can Win, we educate, empower, and encourage couples to embrace that marriage can win, especially when you focus on three key areas: improving your communication skills, developing sound money management skills, and enhancing your level of intimacy so your marriage can win. And every Wednesday night we come to you live at 9 p.m. We have some phenomenal guest speakers, experts in their field. And tonight we have another dynamic couple with us, and we're going to have them share a little bit with you about themselves. I am super, super excited.
And before we get started,
Yep.
because we love all of our viewing audience, we would like you to invite all of your friends, share out the broadcast, or even start a watch party. Now, we love to know what location you're at. So put into the chat your city and your state that you reside. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to go ahead and enter those in.
All right, so let's get started. Let's welcome our amazing guests to the platform. We have joining us this evening none other than Edward and Debbie Smith. They are the authors of the book, The 5-Star Marriage. So everybody, join me in welcoming Edward and Debbie Smith to the Marriage Can Win show. How are you guys doing this evening?
Hey, we're doing great.
Hello.
We're so delighted to be on. We're excited about talking. We're excited about talking about marriage. And the fact that it can win only
Yes,
if you do the work.
yes, yes,
Awesome.
yes.
So why don't you share with our listeners a little bit about yourselves, where you're from, how long you've been married, how many kids you have.
Ooh.
We're going to get into that. We're going to
Wait,
go right in.
wait a minute. Do you want my version or her version?
Both, there's always his version and her version.
Put it this way, the version where you don't get in trouble.
Right. Exactly. So, we are Edward and Debbie Smith. We have been married for 13 years. We just turned teenagers. And I've known Ed since I was a preteen. So probably around 12 years old. Is how long I have known Ed. We went to the same church in New Jersey. We attended the same church. We hung in similar circles. So we sang in the youth choir together. I considered him a friend. I would confide about parental stuff, issues with my parents, and I was a rebellious little girl.
What God? What
God,
God?
right? Ed likes to say that when I was about 18, he tried to date me and I kind of ignored him. But anyway, life took us down separate roads. I ended up getting pregnant, getting married, moving out of New Jersey, moving to Maryland for about 4 years. And unfortunately, that marriage did not pan out. I ended up coming back to New Jersey, my home church, and guess who was still there? None other than Ed. And I'll let you take the story from here. Tell them what happened when you saw me.
So I saw her, right? And I said to her, "What are you doing here?" And so she says that she's moving back to New Jersey. So I said, "Oh, interesting." And I gave her my number, asked her to give me a call. She never did. But then I noticed that she was not around for about another maybe 2, 3 months until she came back again. And I said, "I gave you my number. You never called me." And so she claimed she lost it and misplaced it. And so she took my number again and I said, "Call me." Forgot everything about it. One morning I remember going on my way to work, my phone rang with a strange number, and I said, "Hello." She responds, "Hello, Mr. Smith." And from that moment, we never said goodbye.
I think that's his favorite part of this whole story. you know, just to give you a little more history, I came into my marriage with Ed with 3 children. So we have raised 3 kids together.
Mhm.
My oldest is 25. She's married. She has her own family in Maryland. We have a 20-year-old who's soon to be 21. And then we have a 17-year-old son at home. So, you know, we're parents. We um, have this amazing ministry that God has blessed us with. And it's a pleasure to be here with you guys and just to share a little bit about us with your viewers.
Yeah, and so as you know, we are a blended family, and any day you have a topic about blended family, trust, you give us a call.
All
We can
right.
as a matter of fact, we wrote our third book that we wrote. It's about blended family. It's called I'm Not Leaving, a look inside my blended family, and it tells you everything, basically every turmoils that we have been through in our blended family and how we were able to navigate through it. I wrote a piece from my perspective as the non-biological parent. My wife wrote a piece as the biological parents, and the children wrote their piece.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
so
wow.
so you
Oh,
get
wow.
everything from everybody's perspective.
Oh, that's awesome.
That book is not for the faint of heart. So because it will make you cry. I'm going to let you know, and it
Yeah.
Wow.
also will make you laugh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All
So you
right.
take the extreme emotional trips, huh?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
From
Yeah.
laughter to
Yes.
crying. Wow.
Yes.
But
Yes.
your story sounds a little bit like ours, how we met. It's like, but except for her, God was speaking to her to tell her, be kind to whoever you meet. And we met
Yeah.
in the parking lot of Gaither's Gym, which is in Tallahassee, Florida, at Florida A&M University. And that's where we met. And it's a funny story, but it sounds similar
Wow.
to how we met.
Yeah. All
That's,
right. So share with us a little bit about like your aha moment or when you realized that part of your calling was to help couples.
Ooh.
Oh, so that's very interesting. So Deb was married before, as she shared with you. I was also married before, and so both of us came from a divorce environment. And realizing what divorce did to our relationship. You know, well, at the time I was single, I made a pledge that if I were to get married again, I will make sure that no one goes through the pain that I've been through. And my wife, she kind of made that same pledge herself. So anyhow, God would have it that we got married, and like I said, we got married and we went into, it's a blended family, so we dive right in. And so, with my culture coming from Jamaica, I am a true, authentic, my wife called it, what kind of man am I, babe?
Oh, an alpha male. Alpha
Yeah,
male.
she
And
says that
and
I'm an alpha
and
male.
I'm glad that you shared you're from Jamaica
Yeah,
because Renee says they sound like they're from the islands.
yeah, yes, Renee, I'm from Jamaica. So,
Jamaica.
an alpha male, and so I take charge and protect and all that stuff. And then doing that in my marriage, I realized that a lot of it was not working in my current marriage. So it became very difficult for me, not to do something else. But God spoke to me and let me know that I have to unlearn some things and relearn some new things so that my marriage could work. And I really think that so my wife and I, we were family life leaders at our church. We lead out in the marriage counseling and all that stuff. And so we've said to ourselves that maybe we should get deeper involved in this, getting the proper training and all that stuff, because here it is that we are counseling folks, and we want to make sure that we were saying the right things, doing the right things, guiding them in the right path. And it became so much because it's about 12 years now. And so we said, what, let's make this our ministry. And you know because our primary focus is saving relationships, one relationship at a time.
Yeah.
Now, something you said was really, really important, and it stuck out in my mind when you said you had to unlearn some things and relearn
Yeah.
some things. And I think that is so important because a lot of times, as for men, alpha, some of them may not necessarily be willing to realize to admit that there's some things that I had to unlearn. There's some changes that need to take place in order for me to be either more effective as a leader in the household or as a husband. But the fact that you mentioned that and you acknowledge that, it speaks volumes. And I am hoping and praying that listeners out there, you take that to heart, recognizing that it doesn't take anything away from you. In
Right.
fact, to me, it just, it encourages me because it says, look, he had the wisdom and the foresight to recognize there were some things that he needed to change
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
order to strengthen his marriage and to take the marriage to the next level. So
Absolutely.
speaking of that, you guys are the authors of an amazing book called The 5-Star Marriage. And I've read the book and I have lots of questions. But one of the things I wanted to definitely ask you about was how did you come up with the 5-Star Marriage? Because I'm looking at the parallels and I want you to explain it to the listeners about your book. But this is really, really key. Can you share with our listeners a little bit about how you came up with that?
Mhm.
So, Sakisha, I wish I can tell you that I even remember how we came up with this concept. We were literally just in conversation. We had a coach that we had met on Facebook, and she
Mhm.
was saying to us, listen, you guys have something. You need to write a little ebook. Doesn't have to be long, but you have so much knowledge. Put it into an ebook. So we were talking about, okay, what are we going to write about? Like, how do you
Right.
even start a book? We never intended to be authors. And we just started talking about traveling and hotels. And, imagine if we could look at marriage from that light.
Right.
What if we had to give it a 5-star, like the highest rating at the
Right.
time of
Right.
hotels? And that's how this concept came about. And it just turned into this little ebook. This was our first book that we ever wrote. It's a really quick read, but it's packed with some powerful
Substance.
nuggets.
It's good stuff. Good.
I mean, it is. And as I was reading it, I was just looking at the different levels of the 5-Star Marriage. And I was like, ooh, okay. All right. But I mean, it's an amazing tool. And I want you to take a couple minutes and share with our listeners a little bit about the book, because to me, it was a huge eye opener when you start looking at the different levels and the things that, okay, from the outside looking in, you're like, yeah, that's something I need to change. So, and
Mhm.
mentally, I might be thinking that my marriage is at this level. But then when you read the descriptions, it's like, wait a minute.
Wait a-
There's some things I need to change. But that's what couples need these days to recognize, because we're walking around like, oh, everything is everything.
Yeah.
And you and your
Mhm.
partner aren't even on the same page. You're
Yeah.
thinking
Right,
you're
Mm.
at a level 5 and the other partner's like, no, 2.
right, right.
Mm.
Assessments.
Yeah, and then recognizing, so there's some things you need to unlearn and relearn. So you want to take a
Absolutely.
couple moments and share with our listeners about the 5-Star Marriage?
Sure, we'd love to. So, the book starts off telling a story about a family who
Mhm.
they're getting ready to take their first trip, and the children and the wife are looking at all these 5-star resorts. They are blown away by the 5-star resorts, and the dad kind of had to step in and say, "Whoa, we cannot afford a 5-star resort."
Right.
And so that's where the book starts off, and then we go into what constitutes a 1-star hotel and so forth. And then we move on to the marriage part. What is a 1-star marriage? So really quick, we're going to go through what each stage looks like. And so a 1-star marriage is a couple who have bought into the deceptive concept that they have fallen out of love.
Mhm.
They There's nothing positive about their marriage. They don't connect on any level. There's no intimacy, there's no connection, there's no communication. These two people are no longer a couple. They're not a unit.
Yeah, it's more for a roommate. the only time they would probably come together is when they're talking about the bills to pay, and if they have children, probably will talk about the children, what need to be done, etc. But there are no togetherness, there are no intimacy. They are like two ships in the night passing.
Right. The two-star marriage now, this is a couple who have never exercised true transparency with each other. So they're more into themselves than they are into the relationship. The interesting thing about a two-star couple is that they'll move with a group. So, they'll move with a group of people. You'll see them with a bunch of other couples, but you never see them out alone with just the two of them.
And there's a reason for that, because when they're alone by themselves, it forces them to want to talk about the issues that ails the marriage, and nobody wants to talk about the elephant in the room. However, they will go out to with friends, and so friends is the one that deflects the real problem, because everybody can come together and laugh and talk about common issue, but never talk about the major issue that the relationship.
Right. So then you have the three-star marriage. So this is an interesting couple because both parties keep really busy schedules. Their calendars are full with networking events and work events and all types of things that they both have to do. But again, real issues are plaguing this marriage and they do not want to address them. They are afraid of being completely vulnerable with each other. And what we often see in a three-star marriage is that one party is often in complete control of the relationship. You want to add anything about the three-star?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Then we get to the four-star. Okay. The four-star couple, they are invested in improving their marriage. They're intentional about family time. They spend time with their children. They also plan couple time. So this is an above average marriage, right? They are putting in the work. They're putting in the work.
They oftentimes check in to make sure that everything is okay. They pay close attention to each other. I call it sync. They make sure that both parties are in sync. And this is the four-star marriage. This couple is the one that I call, they do this dance, and they do this dance that move towards oneness. And whenever something comes in and interrupt the dance, they pay attention to that thing and want to alleviate that thing out of the way, move it out of the way so that they can go back to their oneness, they can go back to their dance.
Yep. So this couple is well on their way to becoming a five-star marriage. And speaking of five-star, what does that look like, right? So this is a marriage where communication, patience, commitment, and love abound. This couple succeeds because they have learned how to move from me to we. Both parties in a five-star marriage have an intimate relationship with Christ. We are a Bible-based, Bible-believing ministry. And so we believe that has to be the foundation. And
Absolutely.
So this couple does that. And, part of what we say in the book is that individually, they are confident and fulfilled in their own skin. Together, they are a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Now that is
Love that.
powerful. That's why I was like, I wanted you guys to explain it because I'm reading it because I want people out there that listen. If you're married, or if you're dating or you're contemplating dating, these are some serious nuggets of wisdom to be mindful of. What do you want your marriage to look like? What is your potential spouse or your spouse? What is their goal for the marriage? And when you're listening to the description of a 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star marriage, you can see where you are currently. and opportunity, some awesome nuggets in order to say, hey, are we actually too busy? Are we not being transparent with each other? Are we, allowing things to distract us, or
Right, right.
So this is really, really powerful. So those of you who do not have a copy of this book, make sure you get a copy of it. And before we close out, we'll have them give you an opportunity to tell you where you can get a copy of it. Because I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. Wait till we interview them.
Yeah, this really forces you to look at your relationship when you can actually look into the mirror and see, look at the different levels, and it forces you to take a realistic look at where you are, and then also talk about where you want to be.
Absolutely.
Right.
And then that way, well, we need to take some steps to move into the next level.
And I love the fact that you talked about the importance of having Christ in your marriage. And that's an essential, because we have a lot of people that are like tiptoeing around it. But for you to say, hey, look, you want to have a top-notch marriage, God needs to be a part of it, point blank.
Absolutely.
And that is so important.
You can't be 5-star unless you got God.
Nope.
Yeah.
And so we always have to remember that marriage is not a man-made institution, right? It is something that was designed by Christ. And so Christ is the blueprint for marriage. And in order for you to have a 5-star marriage, you have to understand, you have to be able to read the blueprint. Right. And so consider marriage as a tricycle. A tricycle has 3 wheels, one in the front and 2 in the back. Consider the one in the front as Christ leading, as the 2 in the back is following. Now, if the one in the front were to fall off, the 2 in the back can't go anywhere.
Right.
Can't go anywhere. So you must always have to be in a place where you are following as Christ is leading. And so, and check this out now. So the blueprint is what you use to build the house, to build the foundation of your home, the marriage. But sometimes sometimes you're going to find yourself in a place where you cannot understand how to navigate through the blueprint, because there is some intricate parts in the relationship that are in the blueprint that you just can't understand. That's when you tap into Christ and say, God, I can't understand this. Could you download this information in me? And especially us men, because it's our responsibility. God, can you download this information in me so I can impart it to my family, so we can go back to start building this foundation?
Wow. Now that is powerful. I mean, you said a mouthful right there when you're just thinking about it, and I don't know. I'm thinking all kinds of stuff is going through my mind now.
Yes,
I'm trying to be mindful of the time, but I'm like, okay,
marinate in their head,
Yeah. But what I do want for couples out there that are listening, if you're struggling in your marriage, do not feel bad about where you are. Use it as a tool to say, okay, this is where I need to be. This is a source of encouragement to say, okay, look, this is where we are now. These are the changes we need to implement so we can get ultimately to what God has designed for our marriage. So
and remember now that no marriage is perfect. Every marriage comes with its own conflict and stuff like that. I can be in my mind, or in my comfort zone, I can be at a 4-star in the marriage, or at a 5-star in the marriage, but my wife is at a 1-star or at a 2-star. My job is to recognize that she is at the lowest point in the marriage, right? Find out what is causing her to be at the lowest point, and work on that to get her to the highest point. If when I start to ignore her feelings and her concerns, then that's the time I no longer have interest in the marriage.
So you have a challenge, and you have an assessment in there, which is key, because one of the key components is making sure that the couples are on the same page. Like you said, if you have one that's at a 5 and one that's at a 1, then we need to figure out what's the disconnect. This is your perspective and this is mine. How do we get on the same page?
Absolutely.
So I think that assessment is really an invaluable tool. It's very, very valuable. So,
And we just want to caution those who are watching. The assessment is not a scientific tool. Okay,
Right.
it is a fun
Yeah.
just to gauge where you are. You
Right.
know, do you get happy when you think about growing old with your spouse? Um, would you rather take a road trip, a long road trip, or would you rather walk because you don't want to be in the car with them? So just some, some things that sometimes we don't think about, like
Exactly.
you don't really want to be around this person. You don't really want to be, you cannot have a 5-star marriage if you don't want to be around your spouse,
Right.
And so it's just a fun way to kind of look at where you are, like you said, each of you individually, and then compare it. You know what, babe? I got a 2 on this.
Mm.
What can we do to improve that? So yeah, there is an assessment and there's a challenge and there's some steps and some ways that you can achieve that 5-star status.
Wow. I know everybody out there is listening. It's like, I need the 5-star marriage. I'm right along with you. Now, one of our key pillars here is just expressing what you expect. It's the importance of communication in your marriage. It's one of our core beliefs. Can you share with us one lesson that you've learned thus far that will inspire couples just to keep going and to strive to take their marriages to the next level?
Oh my gosh. So there are so many things that we can share. When we think about marriage, we like to say that marriage is like a marathon. It's like running a marathon. And, while you're running a marathon, you'll see that there are little watering stations
Mm.
all along the way.
Come on,
So
sis.
that as you're running, when you get tired, when you feel like you're dehydrated, all of a sudden you see that little pit stop where you can get some cool water.
Mm.
And so with marriage, you're going to get tired. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to want to give up. You can't breathe. You got to get out. But take heart. There are little watering stations all along the road that God will place there for you. There
Mhm.
are programs like this, books on marriage, conferences that you can attend, retreats that you and your spouse can go
Mhm.
to. Those are all the little watering stations that's placed along the way. So don't give up. Marriage can win. You can win in your marriage. You have to put in the work, you have to put in the time, and you have to lay down the ego. That is huge. You can't have an ego and be a part of a we.
Yeah.
So those
Yeah.
are just a few of the tips and the lessons that we have certainly learned along the way.
Yeah. Also, for me, I love talking to the men, if you don't mind. I love talking to the men because we have a great responsibility in the marital relationship that oftentimes we neglect.
Mm.
God says, man, love your husband, love your wife as I love the church. And not only that, he tells us to do that, he shows us how by dying. I want to say this, that if there was not a problem with love, he would not have given a command to love. And when he says to love, the love did not come with contingencies. It did not say love because of, but it's telling you to love in spite of,
Yeah.
which means that it's a sacrificial love.
Right.
I can't sacrifice today for my love for my wife tomorrow.
Mhm.
It's a daily sacrificial love. The sacrifice that I made today, it is only for today. Tomorrow I have to make a new sacrifice.
Mhm.
And when I'm sacrificing myself, I won't complain, I won't argue, I won't fight, because whenever my wife messes up according to me, I need to die. That's what my Bible says. I need to die. For her. My Bible also tells me that I need to be the covering. I need to be the protector. My Bible tells me that she is fragile, and so I need to handle her with care. And so we have to take those things into consideration. Any man that is on the line tonight, I implore you, for the next 7 days,
Mm.
each morning you get up, say to your wife, how can I be of service to you today?
Mhm.
I encourage you to do that. Just say, how can I be of service to you today? And the first time I did that to her, I caught her off guard. She couldn't even tell me what to do. She was like, what? And so
But I
she,
caught on real quick.
yeah, she caught on real quick. So the first 3 mornings, she was said, okay, I need for you to serve me by. But by the fourth and the fifth, she couldn't come up with anything else. You know, and so what I'm saying is that, these things teaches you how to have sacrificial love.
Yeah.
And that's what God is asking you to do.
Wow,
Wow,
that
that's-
is powerful. I love it. I love it. I
You know,
love it.
Really, it's the blueprint, the Bible, the word. Of course, there's the scriptures when a man finds a wife, he finds a good thing.
Right,
And
right,
he should
right.
love his wife as Christ loved the church. But now we can, because what we do. Our core, what we started out with our first book, Marriage Can Win. We talk about the three greatest issues in marriage, which is communication, finance, and sex.
Mm.
So people say sex. Well, I say read Song of Solomon, chapter 8. And it talks about how we must be loving and caring and intimate. It talks about how we hold our wives to us, a high esteem, and respect. And so what you're saying is right on point. We as men, we need to, if we don't know how to, we can research by reading the word.
Absolutely.
The life blueprint, the marriage blueprint is in the word.
Yeah.
So when people say, well, I don't know how to treat a wife, that's because they haven't been reading the word. Marriage, like you said at the beginning of the show, marriage is in the Bible. It is the word. And that's how we have to have our foundation. So that's why you can't become a 5-star marriage, that level, without Christ and not knowing his word.
Not possible. Not possible.
You gave it because when he came in, he died. He gave us an example of everything that we can do, our rights, our privileges, our level of authority. He gave us all of that. And so, I just had to go on to that because you hit it right on the head. And it's when truth comes out, I just have to point it out that hey, there is truth in your relationship because you have the truth, the spirit of truth in you. And that's where everyone needs the spirit of truth in order to have that level for a man to be able to say, wow, I have to serve my wife. Because a lot of men, we think that we're the ones supposed to be served. I mean, of course we do, but it must be both ways.
Yeah. Like I've stated before, marriage is a divinely institutional thing. It is not normal or natural for me to love my wife as Christ loved the church. What is natural for me is to wanting to please self first. It is not natural for me to want to die. So I have to go beyond my natural to get the unnatural. And once you start to practice the unnatural, the unnatural become natural to you after a while.
Yes.
Yeah. Then you go into the supernatural.
Come on.
There you go.
Yes.
Yep. That's why we must declare the mind of Christ, because if we have the mind of Christ, then we're thinking as he does. And the mind of Christ requires to have the spirit of Christ within us, because we can't understand the spirit of Christ unless we have this. We can't understand the thoughts of Christ if we don't have the spirit.
Right. Yeah. Let's not get it twisted now. Let's not get this twisted now. There are times that my wife may do stuff to me that I just want to be human and just respond to her like a human. You understand me? And say some stuff. You understand me? But it is within those times. I would always tell my wife, I said, babe, I am going to respond to you as though I'm responding to Christ. So what I will do, I will just move her from my mind subliminally, and I replace her with Christ, and I respond accordingly. And I find that work for me. Sometimes I just want to be human and just say, listen, and say two Jamaican stuff and just move on. I'm being real. There are times, but those times are very rare, because I know when I do that, eventually I'm gonna have to go back and apologize for that thing. So I just practice, because listen, when Christ says to us men, Eric, that we ought to love our wife as he loved the church, it's not only about dying, but it's about giving them respect. It's about talking to them in the manner that he, Christ, would talk to them. You
Mm,
understand me? And so
yeah,
we have to learn to speak to our spouse as if in the same manner that we can think about Christ speaking to our spouse, because all of that embodied the caption of love.
Yeah.
we have to go into the whole semantics of that. You know what I mean? When you say love your wife as Christ, so it's easy to say that. But when you think of the meaning and the semantics of that, oh, that's a little different because
Yeah.
you're talking about loving her like you love Christ. Wow. You know what I mean? That's a whole different level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's really awesome.
But it takes your thought pattern to a different level.
Yes.
And then your level of maturity as well. Because as I'm listening to him and he's saying, there are times where my flesh wants to rise up. And then I have to say, no, I got to allow my spirit man to take over and respond to her as I would to Christ. That speaks volumes because you have some people that have not gotten to that point yet. But after watching this broadcast, it's going to, that's going to ring in their mind. And they're going to be like, you know what? They'll be at that point where they're tempted to respond to their wife in their flesh and be like, you know what, I need to take a step back from this and I need to rethink how I'm about to respond to her. And this can cause marriages to shift. And that's the whole purpose of these interviews, to give out these nuggets of wisdom. So you have couples that are struggling in their marriage. You have couples that are at a 1-star, but they desire to increase, to go to the 2-star, the 3-star, the 4-star. But they don't know how. But this implementing smaller steps like that can help shift the trajectory of their marriage.
Yeah.
Well, that's why it takes. That's why when people say, well, when they're not equally yoked, when you don't have someone who's not a Christian believer and someone who's not, it takes someone to strive to mature. You know how the word says you need to mature, but you're not yet there. That's why you're still repenting, and you can't be teaching. You need to be taught all over again. So it's really maturing. But tell us, Edward and Debbie, when was there a defining moment, or some say an aha moment in your marriage, in your relationship?
Go ahead, babe.
Oh man. So I will say, as we shared in the beginning, we're a blended family. And so we have struggled in this area because anyone who's been a part of a blended family, that it's not for the faint of heart. And there was a point in our marriage when it was like World War III at home. Like constant battling and back and forth and arguments. And I remember one day just pulling everybody together. And my husband and my middle child were the two who were constantly at it. And I remember pulling everybody into the family room, the room where we worshiped together every night. And despite us worshiping together, there was this level of turmoil. And I pulled everybody into the family room and I looked at my husband and I said to him, that is my daughter over there, and she's not going anywhere. And I looked at my daughter and I said, that's my husband, and he's not going anywhere. So now that we have gotten that straight, how do we move beyond? How do we go beyond this place that we're in? And that was really a turning point for us as a family. And I think for our marriage, because number one, my husband got to see that I'm not choosing a side. I wanted all of us to win. I wanted my husband to win. I wanted my child to win. I wanted our family to win. I wanted our marriage to win. And so to me, I think that was really a defining moment in our family and in our marriage. I think in that moment, the oneness really started to come together because we recognized, one, that this was not an earthly battle, this was a spiritual battle. And so together as husband and wife, we began to fast and we began to pray for our children and for our marriage. So that was really a turning point for us. And even, our book on the blended family, I talk about that moment. I talk about how, and that's where we came up with the name for the book, I'm Not Leaving, because it was in that moment that we all decided that we're not leaving. Like, nobody's leaving this family. So we're going to stay and we're going to fight it out and we're going to fight together as a family.
Yeah, and as you can see, the banner behind us says this means war. It's actually fighting for marriage is actually war.
Yeah.
It is a serious war, and you have to be intentional about winning this war. You have to understand that your enemy is not on the inside, but the enemy is on the outside. So those that are on the inside are with you and is fighting the same battle with you. And for me, I did what I call a paradigm shift. And I started working on myself. So the things that I needed to see in my relationship with my children and my spouse and stuff, I started mirroring that, which means that I started doing a lot of self-subjecting, and I go back again. I started unlearning a lot of stuff that I realized was not working in my marital relationship, and start learning and developing new things that I know would have worked. And funny enough, that our older daughter, who is now married, and lives in Maryland, she was here and she spent some time with us, and she said, Pops, you don't argue and fight anymore and stuff, and because she was trying to make a point, and I said, no, baby, I don't do that anymore. Well, that's the old me. This is the new me. And it creates more harmony in my home. And so anyone out there that is listening, I implore you, be the change that you would like to see in your relationship.
Absolutely. And what you've done is demonstrated that, because a lot of kids, they'll listen to what we say, but then they're going to also look at what they see. So now you said it and they see it in their home. So when they get married and have relationships, that's what's going to be in the back of their minds. They recognize that marriages are not perfect, but they are worth fighting for.
Absolutely.
They're learning how to honor how the spouses honor one another. So we applaud you guys doing an amazing job.
Oh yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have a question for you, because you've written the amazing book, The 5-Star Marriage. What is one tool or resource that you feel that couples should not be without today?
What tool that they should not be without today?
For me, I'm gonna go back to the 3 pillars that you said your first book was written on. And to me, I'm gonna say communication is the tool that you cannot do without in your marriage. And communication for us was huge. We struggled in the beginning. Don't point at me. Do not even point at me. But yes, there was a struggle with communication. I think when you're coming from a place where you didn't feel heard in your previous relationship, you didn't feel seen in your previous relationship, you bring that over with you. And so you end up keeping so much bottled up inside. You don't trust that what you say is going to be honored or respected. And so to me, if you have the ability and the tool to communicate effectively, finances will not be an issue because you're going to learn how to talk it out. Sex will not be an issue because you're going to learn to talk it out. And so if you can learn how to communicate, take a class. There's so many tools out there on communication. One of the things that we teach our couples when they come to us for counseling, we talk about who has the floor, you know, learning how to listen, you know, when your spouse has the floor, and you can use whatever you want to, you know, simulate the floor. You can take a piece of tile. Hey, you have the floor now. And when that other person has the floor, you are listening. You're listening with your eyes. You're listening with your ears. You're looking at body language so that when you have the floor, you have an understanding of what the other person has just said. So I think communication is the one thing you can absolutely not do without.
Yeah. And for me, I think that, you know, one of the most important or most powerful thing to have in any marital relationship is understanding your spouse's love language.
Mhm.
Yes,
You
yes,
have to
yes.
understand your spouse love language, because here's what it is. You know, if your spouse love language is words of affirmation, but every Friday you come home from work, you're bringing her a dozen roses, you know, she's going to love it and she's going to appreciate it, but it does not speak volume to her love language, words of affirmation. You have to find out what your spouse love languages are and speak volume to that, because that's the only way your spouse will understand love.
Yeah.
You
That's
cannot
true.
give to her love the way that you deemed it should be. You have to speak love to her in the manner of which she can receive it.
Yeah.
Yes. That is so powerful.
Man,
That is so
wait a
true.
minute. Are we like brothers and sisters?
Sisters.
Wait a minute. It's like listening to ourselves when we're teaching. I mean, wait a minute. We synchronize some kind of way.
Like
Sound like
mine.
I'm listening to ourselves.
But I mean, but it's good. I mean,
Yeah.
like mine.
This is
then,
good.
And this is really powerful because you know that's something that we stress to couples, just making sure, like you said, communicate in a way that we can receive. Because I always laugh because I share this story how I always thought I was the bomb.com wife because I would be cooking, the house would be clean, kids taken care of, bills paid, but his love language was physical touch.
My turn to point at her.
So for him, he was just kind of like, all of that is nothing. All of that is great, but it's doing absolutely nothing for me because that doesn't speak love to me. And
Right.
I was just like, wait, what? Don't you know what I'm doing? Can't
Yeah.
you?
Right.
I'm amazing.
Right.
And he was kind of like, no, not really. But I had to learn, and that's the thing. A lot of times we're spending our time spinning our wheels, you know, just doing what we feel, actually what would speak love to me. But it said absolutely nothing to him.
Yeah.
And that was a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
But the truth is we were able to connect more once I realized what his love language was, and then was intentional about, demonstrating that, being, physical touch. Now, for me, mine was acts of service. I come home and you vacuum the house. Oh my gosh, you're the best husband ever.
Right.
But those are phases that we go through. My love language has now changed.
Yes.
But he recognizes that now. So he's intentional about communicating with me in that way. And for me now, it's like quality time. I want your time. I want some attention. Turn off the TV. The kids can go in another room. I just need that quality time. And it's important to recognize that, because sometimes as we get older, I'm not the same person that, 30 plus as I was when I was younger.
Right. Now, I mean, we're, that saying, what was it from Bubba Gump Shrimp? We're like two peas in a pod. We're almost inseparable. Everywhere we go, we go together. If I go out of the room and she's still in the room more than maybe 2 to 3 minutes, she's like, Eric, where are you? Or even at night, if I wake up in the middle of the night and I go, like last night, I'm surprised she didn't come down. So it was probably like 3, almost 4 o'clock. I came down, I couldn't sleep, so I came down and I started praying in the living room. And I was waiting for her to come, because normally when I leave out the room, she will come and wake up, be fast asleep, snoring. She'll wake up and be like, what's going on? Or she'll
Yep.
be praying and she'll come join in.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
love that, and it's the same way. It's like, it's like I don't want to be without her.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
the same room. If we go somewhere, we go together. And then when she goes, like during the day, she leaves. I'm like, where you going?
Well, you need that time by yourself, but a lot of times I'll run errands, do what I have to do while he's
Mhm.
working, so I won't interrupt him. And then it's
Right.
wisdom, recognizing, what you need to do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
it's time to be together, when it's time, okay, you're working, let me not interrupt. Because there's working with marriages, we can do that all day, 24/7, and
Right.
Oh
it's
yes.
our passion.
But
Yeah.
Yeah.
if we had more couples that spoke and lived like you guys do, you are giving a awesome example
Yeah.
of how you evolve in your relationship and how you take two individuals with two different families. 'Cause you both,
Mhm.
like you say, you have blended families, and you blend together, and you come together and you blend together just like the Holy Spirit.
Mhm.
We're teaching about, right?
Mhm.
But you take one jar of water, which is Debbie, and the other jar of water, which is Edward, and you pour it into that one jar, you mix.
Mhm.
Come on,
Yeah.
sir.
You weren't
Come on.
water and water.
Yes.
You were oil and water, and you
Yeah.
pour it into that one jar.
Yes, a
One
Yes.
is
mix.
it's going to be a separation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right,
But
right.
Yeah.
you are showing you are an exemplary example of a blended family, but with
Mhm.
the mind of Christ in
Yeah.
your marriage. And that is so awesome. I do applaud you so much.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love to see.
And trust
Man,
us,
and
we.
it's God, it's not us, brother.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I have one young man who just told me the other day that he admired my marital relationship and he wants to be like me. I said to him, sir, unless you're willing to travel the road that I traveled, you don't want to be
Right.
like me.
Mhm.
You don't want to be like
Yeah.
me.
Because at the end of the day, Deb and Ed, we still have our
Of
disagreements.
course, of
Oh, of
course.
course.
We
Yes.
still have our issues, but we know that there's no issue that we cannot conquer
Right.
together.
Mhm.
And I
Right.
think when husband and wife get to that level, when you're
Mhm.
just like, there is nothing that's going to break this marriage, this thing that we have built and
Mhm.
and cried over and prayed over and fought for. Like,
Yeah.
we're not going anywhere, and that's the
Oh, yeah.
whole premise behind the book, I'm Not Leaving.
Right.
But that's what it is. Like, I'm not going anywhere. We're gonna fight through this, we're gonna pray through this, we're gonna cry through this, or we're gonna do it together.
You know, I
See,
I, I tell you what, sorry about that. I must give you this plug in real quick. A lot of people, maybe listening and said, I need to get the 5-star marriage. And yes, you need to get it. It's a quick read, maybe 35 minutes, 40 minutes, it's done. And you know, but sometimes people read it and said, how do I get to a 5-star marriage? Well, I have news for you. Deb and I also have written our second book. It's called 5-Star Husband, the 5-Star Wife.
Yeah.
Right.
I like that.
And as a matter of fact, it's right here. It's actually a
I like
flip
it.
book. On one side is the 5-star wife, but if you flip it over like that, it's the 5-star husband. And so I wrote half of the book, she wrote the other half of the book, and it speaks volume to what a 5-star husband should look like,
Yeah.
or what a 5-star wife should look like. And so if you were to follow these guidelines, I guarantee you that you will attain 5-star and more, because they are not based on what Deb and Ed is, but they're based on what God says that you should do.
Yeah.
You know what? The Holy Spirit must have said, Eric and Sakisha, y'all moving too slow. We're gonna give it to Deb and Edward.
No.
Because
No, you know what? We're laughing because I talked to
Yes.
him a while ago
Yes.
about doing a book, and doing my perspective on one side and flipping it over and his perspective on the other side. He's like, well, how would that work? Well, how would they be able to do that? And just when you pulled it out and you showed it, that's why he looked at me like, I was like, okay, see, God.
Wait a minute.
Well,
now.
I'll tell you,
We
when
moved- look.
when we spoke to our publisher about this book, I said to him, Rotimi, we need this to be a flip book.
Mhm.
And he was like, a flip book? No,
It's
we
not
can't
gonna
do
work.
that. And I said, oh, yes, you can and you will do it because that's what we want.
That's so awesome.
And we were so pleased with, you know, the way that it came out. We're just, I mean, one book that husband and wife can read together and, you know, just listen, whatever you have in your mind to do as a couple,
Yeah.
go forth and do it in excellence.
And and make sure you have a good publisher, because with this book, within 30 days it became Amazon bestseller.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
So
Awesome.
thank you. So believe in yourself and get it done, because in most cases, the Holy Spirit is saying to you, do this.
Yeah.
You understand me? But you became the hindrance from doing what God is asking you
Yeah.
to do.
wow.
And it was the same thing with our third book. The Holy Spirit told my husband we needed to do a book on the blended family. And I was like, no, I'm not putting my business out there like that on this blended family. And so where the other two books took us 2 months to finish,
Mhm.
the blended family book took us over a year to finish because we would start and stop and cry.
Too much
and
emotions.
so many emotions went into that book. But at the end of the day, it really facilitated some healing in our own family. And I think it helped other families who read it to just open up the doors of conversation. So allow the Holy Spirit to lead you. He will never, ever, ever lead you wrong.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Awesome.
I just want to say this too. This is what we need.
Yeah.
This is what America needs, because that's going to be my next teaching. And I'm going to go forth when my wife don't want to do it or not. It's the infrastructure of America, which is the family.
That's
Yes,
it.
sir.
Family.
Yes, sir.
And so, because boys and girls, they don't know what a successful relationship looks like. They don't know what a husband looks like. They don't know what a wife looks like. So this is why what you're showing and what you are and what we are showing. And when people say, man, I want a relationship like that, I want to get married, I want a wife like that, I want to be a husband like that, this is what we need more of. We need examples of this. So America, not just but America, if America had an infrastructure of a strong family, and of course, the strong family has to have Christ in it.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes,
America
sir.
will not be in the situation that it is now. There will be no racism. There will be no crime, at least to the extent of where it is. There will be less and less breakups and divorces. There will be less and less domestic violence because of now they know what it looks like, and so you won't have any broken families because now you have fathers who will teach their sons what a man looks like, and mothers that will teach their daughters of what a woman looks like, and then they will teach them how to be a wife and what is expected of when you take on the role of a wife, and when you take the role of a man and a husband, because you got to first be a man before you can become a husband.
Yes, sir.
Ultimately, you got to know what it means to be a husband in order to be a father.
Wow.
Come on, sir.
Powerful.
Yes,
Powerful.
sir. Yes, sir.
It's so
American. I'm going to teach it with my wife.
I'm listening to you talk, and last night we have a Tuesday evening live that we do, and we got into a heated conversation and a heated debate about a relationship that we were talking about. And so we said next Tuesday we're going to do part 2. And we want to invite some of our friends who are in this relationship space to just hop on, hop on, hop off, give your thoughts. So we're inviting you guys, okay? If you're not busy next Tuesday at 7,
okay, good.
Join our live, because it's a conversation that needs to be had, especially listening to you, Eric, talk about understanding the role of a husband and the role of a wife. And last night we were saying, you're not a wife until you're a wife. So stop performing wifely duties until you become a wife. And so we want to delve into that a little bit more next week. So those of you who are listening, if you don't follow us, Meet the Smiths, make sure you follow, because the conversation is going to be hot. We're gonna break the internet next Tuesday.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
Speaking
we
of,
had fun
how
last
can
night.
they get a copy of that book? How can they reach you guys?
So all of our books are on Amazon. So if you
Okay.
go to Amazon.com and you put in Edward and Debbie Smith, the 3 titles will come up. You can reach us by emailing us info@meetthesmiths.org. We do have a website that is meetthesmiths.org. And you can find us on social media. We are on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we have a YouTube channel that's very inactive. But we plan to get it back up and active. I'm looking at him because he knows this is his lane.
It's a lot of work. It's a whole
Yeah,
lot of
I
work,
know.
man. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, but anywhere on
mean-
social media you can find us.
Yeah.
All right. So what is next for you guys?
Oh man, what is next for us? So we actually have some pretty exciting news coming up.
Right.
You know, my husband has 3 loves after God, and it's music, fashion, and me. And I'm probably 3rd on the list, even though he'll say I'm not. But he loves music and he loves fashion. And so this year, for his 60th birthday, we are releasing a fashion line.
Oh,
So
I
we
love
are,
Oh,
yeah, we are really, really excited about that. We can't wait to just show you guys our pieces and our collection. So that's coming out in fall
Yes.
2020.
okay.
I don't know that there are any books in our future. I think
Okay.
the
Not right
author,
now.
yeah. You know, we're putting down our pens for now in the author
Okay.
lane. But 2021, we have an amazing This Means War workshop. We will be doing a 7-day Mediterranean cruise. We have
Wow.
a phenomenal speaker that's going to be coming with us on the trip. We're going to have workshops for singles and married folk. This is actually going to be our 4th trip.
Cruise. Right.
This Means War workshop that we've done.
Mhm.
We've been to Costa Rica. We've done other cruises. Last year we had 172 people on a cruise with us.
Wow.
And it was just such a powerful image to see all 172 of us with our t-shirts that says "This Means War" walking
Oh,
across the cruise ship. So if you love to travel, and you want to grow your relationship, then you want to be on the Mediterranean with us in 2021.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
all
ma'am.
right.
Wow.
So make sure you send us that information and we can share it out,
Oh,
okay?
yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, man, time has flown, and we're going to have to wrap it up to this evening. But this has been such an awesome show. We're going
Yeah.
to have the Smiths back on.
Absolutely.
Definitely will.
Absolutely.
Part 2. Part
Yes.
2.
And
Part
so,
2.
yes, definitely. So everybody, make sure you go to meetthesmiths.org and search them out on Amazon and get their books, because that's a great resources and going to
Yeah.
help your marriage get on the
Absolutely.
right track to get to that 5-star level.
Yes.
And also make sure you stay abreast on with them and stay connected on social media.
All right. So just remember, you can be the change that you want to see in your relationship.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Until next time. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.